Uh, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bianca. I am the programs manager for the Old Globe. I would like to introduce our host today, our student host today, Gianna. Gianna, why don't we bring you on for our final episode of Creative Youth Studio?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gianna Merghart, and welcome to today's Creative Youth Studio Workshop, a free weekly series connecting young artists to industry experts to help further their career in the arts. Today is a special episode not only because of our guest artist, but it's our season finale. We had such a great time with our artists sharing their passions and secrets to success and your wonderful questions. We'll be back in February 2021 with new skill sets and topics for you all. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and we'll get around to answering them later at the end. It'll be a really fun time. A little about me. I've been performing since 2013 and I've worked all over San Diego since then. I've had the honor of playing Sophie in Mamma Mia last summer. I worked on Sandra and Big Fish just before quarantine hit, and I'm currently working on the Brooke understudy in Be More Chill. Today's episode is called Musical Theater, Song, Dance, and Story, and we'll be discussing an introduction to musical theater as an art form, how to get started, stay on your game, and get involved. Learn the subgenres and how different kinds of songs end up in a story on stage. I am so very happy to introduce Randall Eames. Randall is a San Diego-based coach, actor, and director who has a passion for nurturing unique artists and creating distinctive theatrical experiences. His teaching and creative approach is individually tailored, approachable, and lighthearted. He has a bachelor's degree in acting and directing from Weber State University and an MFA in musical theater from San Diego State University.
Thank you, Gianna. I am so happy to be here on this show today. And hola, hola, hola to my friend Valeria, who's in the chat on YouTube. Make sure y'all chatting us up in there, okay?
So I know Randall because he and I have worked together on a couple different shows. He actually cast me as my first lead, Sophie in Mamma Mia, last summer, and he's directed like 3 of the shows I've been in recently since then. I got into musical theater and met him through junior theater, which was a youth theater that I watched my aunt do a lot of musicals in and inspired me to get into it myself.
That is so true. I remember Gianna when she she barely was 15. She was, wrangling kindergartners around Balboa Park. What days those were. Can't wait till we all get to be back together again. Anyway, I am here to talk about musical theater with my great friend and student, Gianna. So let's talk about it, shall we?
Yeah, of course.
What is musical theater? So for starters, of course, there's a leaf blower outside. Welcome, everybody. So for starters, musical theater is telling a story through song and dance. And I love musical theater because it really just brings together all art forms. It's performance art, it's the performing arts, it's written, it's visual arts, it's everything. So musical theater is this compendium of everything that is beautiful and wonderful in the world. And that's why I love it so much. So musical theater, as we know it today, is kind of birthed from many, many different art forms.
What are some of the different art forms? Let's see, I know there's ballet and opera, but tell me about each of them.
Yeah, sure, of course. So we have opera, grand opera, which is, we think of the ladies singing with the horns on her head and the big ballads and everything like that, the arias. So that's grand opera. And then as time went on, they started to get a little more closer to what we know as musical theater. The singing style became a little speechier, it came lighter, and then we're looking at like vaudeville, which for those of you who don't know was like acts. It was kind of like the Lawrence Welk show. People would come on and they would do comedy routines, they would perform or do circus acts or dog acts with their families, they'd sing songs, they'd tap dance. So that's vaudeville. And musical theater kind of came from this really trained what we identify as like classical world of opera and ballet dance, and then it kind of morphs into this more like pop culture-y land as social and popular music started to leak in. So we start in like early 1900s, 1920. We get vaudeville, and people are singing and dancing on stage with their dogs sometimes. It sounds a little hokey when I explain it like that, but it's actually really cool. Vaudeville's cool. You should YouTube it sometime. Vaudeville performances. But then around the mid to late 1920s, we start getting full-length musicals where people are writing shows to tell a story that includes song and dance in them. They don't always connect as well, but in 1927, we get a few that kind of do that a little better, like Showboat and No No Nanette. So we start to see some story in the 20s, and then we move into the 30s, and dance starts to be a larger presence in musical theater, in the scenes and the songs, with George Balanchine Slaughter on 10th Street. And then Agnes DeMille, maybe you know her. She's a famous choreographer. She also did like Rodeo, one of the biggest dance shows ever. Check it out if you don't know it. So then in 1943, we get the big hitter that kind of shows us what we know as musical theater. We know what it looks like today. And it was written by two fellas, and it's 1943 that changed the game. Who knows what it is? If you know what it is, type it in the chat. Type it in the comments. If you know what show it is, type it in the chat. Do it, do it, do it. Anybody know it? Gianna, do you know what it is?
I really want to say Cinderella.
It's not Cinderella, Gianna. You were so close. Actually, it was written by the same people who wrote Cinderella, though. It's Rodgers and Hammerstein. So in Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote it, and it is Oklahoma. In 1943, we get Oklahoma in New York, and it is this show that kind of seamlessly works from scenes into songs. And the songs are actually written for the story. The characters are singing them, and they match up really, really well. So in 1943, everything kind of changes, and that's when we get what we know as the book musical.
For everyone who doesn't know, can you explain what a book musical is? Because that's a new term.
Exactly, Gianna. Thank you for asking that question. So a book musical is it's basically a play that has songs in it, and the songs are meant to be there. Not just like a play that has a couple songs here and there, but the songs are like a driver in the story. So that's called the libretto, is the book, the written like script part. And it's called a book musical because it's, you know, telling a story through song and dance. So that's where musical theater, like, if you were to ask somebody what's a musical, then they'd probably describe something like Oklahoma, if you were to talk to them. So then as time goes on, we start getting influence of more and more popular music like rock and roll. And in the 60s, there's this musical called Promises, Promises that everybody's singing in the 60s. They have this like pop sort of sensibility, and they're singing lighter sounds. So they're like, oh my gosh, we need microphones. So they add microphones in, and the actors start singing with microphones, and some of them are in this orchestra pit, and they're like singing backup on Broadway shows, and they're like not even on stage. So it's like a radio, like a pop radio show, only it's on Broadway. So then we like get all these great influences like rock and roll, like we know it in the 70s and 80s. We got like a little grittier, and we use these rock sounds, and we use the mics more. There was Jesus Christ Superstar, which we might talk about a little bit later. They had their microphones. They had these huge microphones, not like the tiny little ones that we see today, but they had these huge microphones, and they would hide them in their costumes in the most like bizarre places. Like they would be in a group of flowers, or like this giant thing on their neck, because they needed the microphone there so they could pick up the kind of sound they were singing. So that's a little bit of history about how we got to where we are in musical theater. A little bit of the book, a little bit of the play, a little bit of everything that kind of makes up our musical theater pie.
Well, now that we know some of the history of musical theater, maybe you could give us some tips on how to get started.
Absolutely. I would love to do that. So if you want to be in musical theater, the first thing you're going to have to do is audition. So for those of you who've been hanging out with us at the Creative Youth Studio for a while, you'll know that we talked a little bit about auditions before, but we're going to talk specifically about a musical theater audition today and how to do that. So first things first, you're going to need a song. And you're like, Randall, I sing Part of Your World all the time in my bedroom. I got it. And I'm going to be like, hey, pick a song that actually reflects you. I know you may think you're a mermaid inside, but you probably aren't. So you're going to need to audition, and you're going to read an audition call. That's what theater companies or groups send out when they want people to come and be in their show. They send out an audition notice or a call. And it's going to say you need like 16 to 32 bars or 30 seconds to a minute. And you're like, why would I bring a bar to an audition, Randall? That's ridiculous. I'm not going to hit anybody. So a bar, for those of us who don't know, is actually a measure. There are two little lines. If you look at music, the two little lines, that's a bar or a measure. So when you see a call that says 16 to 32 bars, they want 16 to 32 measures of music or 30 seconds to a minute of music. So that's the first thing. You need a song. And when you pick this song, you want to make sure it represents you well. You can sing it well. It shows off what you want to show off about yourself. And like, it's fun for you to sing. You enjoy singing it. Now, I always recommend, because this is how you need to do it. If you're going to sing a song, you need to have sheet music.
Well, I don't have a whole lot of sheet music around my house. Where can I find some sheet music? Do you have any suggestions?
I do. You can go on Sheet Music Direct. You could go on musicnotes.com and search for the song. It's just like a simple little search engine. You type in what you want and the song will pop up. And then you can buy it, because we always want to buy music and support composers and arrangers, because that's what we want to do. That's the good thing. So you get your sheet music, you learn your song, you maybe can play the piano by yourself so you know how to get your notes. Maybe you just know it from the radio, but you want to meet up with somebody so you can practice a little bit so you're familiar with it. You don't want to just walk into a room with music and never having sung with that music before, because that's a disaster. And in this day and age, I always recommend, usually if in a professional audition, you're going to have a live accompanist. That's the person who plays the piano, and it's pronounced accompanist. Everybody say it with me at home. Accompanist. One of the most mispronounced words in musical theater. So you're going to have an accompanist who plays the piano. So you hand them their sheet music, and they'll tell you to sing. You'll introduce yourself. You'll say, hi, my name is Gianna Merkhart. I will be singing whatever song it is she sings. And the director and the choreographer and music director, they're all going to be sitting there watching. In this day and age, I also recommend, since we all have one of these things hanging around, this is my cell phone. Since we all have one of these things that can hold music, I recommend getting an MP3 recording of your song, because that way, if the accompanist isn't there, you can sing. You don't want the MP3 to be the only way, but I recommend you have it just in case. It also is a great way for you to practice, and you can stay on your stuff. So great. You told me how to get a song. You told me how to get sheet music. What do I sing, Randall? You got mad at me when I said part of your world. What do I sing, right? So what I recommend is you find, I'm looking at 3 different songs. Obviously, if you're gonna get more professional and you're gonna go on and do this more, you're gonna wanna expand your repertoire or what songs you know a little bit more. But I recommend 3 songs. you want to sing a song that matches the style of the show you're auditioning for. If you're auditioning for Mamma Mia, which those of you who don't know, is a musical that's made up entirely of ABBA music. It is the best thing in the world. I want to live in ABBA Mamma Mia land forever because it's just some sweet, you know, light pop bops going on. And I love that. That's where I met, it's not where I met Gianna, but that was one of her first leading roles. And we get to have a lot of fun.
Everybody wants to be in Mamma Mia land all the time.
Everyone does. Vieka's saying in the chat that that's her go-to karaoke song. You are right, girl. I ain't mad about it for karaoke.
Mm-hmm.
So you're auditioning for Mamma Mia. And you're like, okay, ABBA song. What sounds like ABBA? You want something that has that light pop sort of sound, right? You're not gonna go in and sing an opera aria if you're auditioning for an ABBA song. That just sounds weird, right? So you might want to pick up something by like Olivia Newton-John for ABBA, because that shows off the style, or maybe even like some Mandy Moore, depending on the song, right? So that's the first song. Have a pop song that you sound good on and that you like to sing. Make sure you have the sheet music for it, okay? You don't want to go in and sing with the track. You don't want to do that. Then you want a funny song or an up-tempo, something that is bright and shows happy emotions, right? Gianna, what's your up-tempo or your funny song?
I've currently been working on Like Me by Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez. They are actually the writers for Frozen.
Yeah. Oh, she knows her musical theater. Okay, she's flexing. All right, I see it. By Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez. Let's celebrate female lyricists in the industry. Yes, I love that. So that's Gianna's up-tempo. You want your pop song, you want your up-tempo that kind of shows some lighter colors. And then you want a ballad. So these are songs that are a little grander in their singing style. They might have a little longer phrases. They're a little bit more emotional, so you can feel yourself a little bit more. Gianna, do you have a ballad in your book?
I do. I've been working on I'll Tell the Man in the Street from I Married an Angel. It's a Rodgers and Hart song.
Oh my gosh, Rodgers and Hart. Yes. Do you know the Rodgers in that Rodgers and Hart? Do you know where he came from?
I want to say it's the same Rodgers from Rodgers and Hart.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, Gianna, you're right. It is the same Rodgers. So Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II have an interesting story. So remember way back, like 20 minutes ago, when I told you about Showboat in 1927. So that book, what is a book? A libretto, right?
Yeah.
It's the story, yeah. So Oscar Hammerstein II wrote the book for Showboat in 1927. And then in 1943, he writes Oklahoma. So Richard Rodgers was working with Lorenz Hart before that in the 30s. And they write these really fun songs that have great lyrics. They're was quippy and really good with lyrics and rhymes. And Richard Rodgers is this really good like musical storyteller. So we get these two musical theater like storytellers, Oscar Hammerstein II, Richard Rodgers. They come together and they start creating what most people know as the musical, because it was really well structured, because they're both at the top of their game. Gianna is living her musical theater life today.
So do you think there's a special time and place to use a musical theater song versus a pop song in auditions?
Absolutely. So when you get your musical theater audition notice, when you get your audition notice for the show, they're going to say, usually sing a song in the style of the show, right? So if you have a show like Mamma Mia that was written by pop singers, you want to sing a pop song because it's pop music. If you are auditioning for a show that is written by musical theater composers who, like Rodgers and Hammerstein, or sometimes Bobby and Kristen Lopez, you want to audition with a song that sounds like that. So if it's a musical theater song that sounds like traditional musical theater, use a traditional musical theater song. If it's a pop show, sing pop music. Please, as someone who directs and choreographs, please use pop music. So we've got our song. We know what a bar is. We've walked in the room. We're standing on the X. We've introduced ourselves. And then we think, oh my gosh, what am I wearing? Right? You're like, what am I wearing? Well, what do you think you want to wear, Gianna? What do you think you want to wear to an audition? What would you wear?
Not a costume. You want to wear something that looks like you.
Exactly right. You want to wear something that looks like you, and also lets the creative team or the director and the choreographer see you as that character. So if I'm auditioning for Oklahoma, which is like a Western show, I'm not going to walk in with a cowboy hat and chaps because that would be ridiculous. But I might wear like a plaid shirt and some jeans, right?
Totally.
You want to look and feel confident and comfortable. That's what I say. The next part of the audition. So we've sang and they're like, great, everybody put on your dance shoes.
Well, I'm not
And
that
you're
great a
like,
dancer. What can I expect for dance auditions?
that's a great question, Gianna. So a lot of us out there, my friend likes to call them spirited movers. We're not great dancers, and that's okay. When I'm looking for a dance call, as a director, sure, I might need you to be really great at jazz dance or tap dance or African dance or modern, or the list goes on and on. I might want those things, but really what I'm looking for is somebody who is confident and can tell the story while they're moving their body and embody a character. So even if you can't dance and you're like, they say I have to go to a dance call and that scares you, lean into that. It's totally fine. The only way you're going to get better is if you do it, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So just go and dance and have fun. Enjoy it. If you can't dance, I can see that. Like, it's not a surprise, right? If you're not a great dancer, I can see you can't dance, but I can't see your personality if you won't show it to me. So that's what I'm looking for.
So
Okay.
now that we know a little bit more about auditions and we show them what we've got, what comes next?
What comes next? You grab some ice cream and you go home and you wait and you wait and you wait. And hopefully they'll send you an email that says, you got a callback. What's a callback? So a callback is when they want to see more of you. So they might send you some sides, which are usually little snippets of the script. They might be little scenes of the script, and they might be little cuts of music, a few bars or measures of music that they want you to learn and prepare when you come back and they want to see them again, right? So you go home and you try and memorize these lines, but you're like, I just got them last night. Don't worry. It's okay. You don't have to be memorized, but you do want to be as prepared as possible. It's just like when you give a presentation or at school, or, you know, whenever you're doing something that you want to impress people, you want to be as prepared as you can be, because then you'll be more successful and be able to show more of yourself, right? So you've practiced and practiced and practiced, and then you get in the callback and you like left it all out on the table. And the director says, great, I want to see something else. Can you do this differently? And you're like, but I practiced it this way. That's all I know how to do.
So do you think there should be other ways to practice? We should try multiple styles?
Absolutely, Gianna. It's like you've done this before. You're reading my mind, Gianna. You absolutely should do it. When you're practicing, practice it multiple ways. Don't get set in one way, because the director or the person who's in charge of the artistic vision of the show might really love what you do in that scene, but they might be also looking for something totally different for that scene or for a different part of the show. So when they ask for something different, say yes, absolutely. You might be asking yourselves at home, I know I would be, I'd be saying, so what is different? Like, what do you mean by different, right? So the first time I do the scene, I might do it might be a really dramatic scene. And I might be really broody and dark, and I might cry. I might make myself cry and just really feel everything and leave it all out there. And then the director's like, okay, great. Can you do it funny? And the thing is, if you can't do it funny and they ask you to do it funny, they're probably not going to give you the job, right? But if you do it funny, different, if I'm doing it different, I might emphasize different words. I might change my tempo up a little bit. I might change how I carry my body. I might change my posture. And if I cry at the end, because remember, it was a really dramatic scene. If I cry at the end, maybe this time it's over the top so it makes the director laugh. I want to practice it so many different ways that I'm really comfortable just switching back and forth between all of them.
We actually have a question here from Shelley.
We have a question. Oh my gosh.
Yes. It says, if the book is the libretto, or it says, if the book is a libretto, and in some musicals there are 3 different people credited as the book, lyricist, and composer, how do all of those break down?
That's a great question. So usually what breaks down is you have a composer. That's the person who writes the music. And then the lyricist is the person who writes the words to the songs. So sometimes a lyricist will also be the book writer. And sometimes there's a composing team, a songwriting team that is a composer and a lyricist. And they work with somebody who specializes in writing books or librettos. So all 3 of them kind of do their own job, and then they get in a room together and see what works and what doesn't work. Usually there's a lot of like, well, I think this would work here and this would work here. There's a little bleed into different areas, but usually if there are 3 people listed, they do that one thing. That's their job. That's a great question, Shelley. Go you.
All right. So we know what a musical is. We have some little insight about what people do making musicals, and we have tips for auditions and callbacks. But that's all advice for when we're live and in person. What about right now?
You're right, Gianna. Pandemic land. What do we do? Well, that's a great question. Because I know as an artist, as a musical theater performer and director, it's kind of like harsh and my mellow right now to be stuck at home in my bedroom. There are some people out there who are doing Zoomsicle performances or online cabarets. For those of you who don't know, it's when Zoomsicle is when those of us who do musical theater try to do a musical online, but we all know it's really hard because you have to record things because you can't sing together, and it's fun, but it's not really the thing we do. So what I recommend we do, this is a fun trick. So the thing with the Zoomsicle is blocking. That's what we call moving around on stage. That's what we call our stage movement. So it's hard to do on Zoom because you sit in front of a camera, and if you move from the camera, no one can see you. So to create the illusion that we're like talking to each other, I might look over my right shoulder, and I might ask Gianna to look over her left shoulder. So when we're talking on Zoom, yeah, there you go, girl. So when we're talking on Zoom, it looks like we're having a conversation. That's the That's the silly stuff we do in Zoomsicles. But Gianna's right. That's not how we live our lives normally. So what I recommend to stay active is practice, practice, practice every day. Like Gianna said, she's working on a couple new songs for her audition repertoire. So if she practices right now and gets those songs really great, when we can audition again, she's going to be awesome, right? Because she's practiced every day. And what you want, the thing about auditioning to make it less scary is be ready and stay ready. Because once you're ready, if you're already ready, you don't got to get ready, right?
Yeah.
So you want to practice every day. And also, there are tons of people, professional, awesome voice teachers and dance teachers who are running online studios right now, who are offering free or really low cost classes on YouTube, on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You can look on Playbill or Broadway.com. Those things are all Playbill.com and Broadway.com. They're always listed there. And they're great resources to find people who are just like you, stuck at home, wanting to stay active. What I do is I have a parking spot. There's a parking garage underneath my apartment complex. So I take my car, I park it out on the street, I throw in these AirPods, and I use my parking spot as a dance studio because we got to get it out. We got to get that musical theater out. We can't keep it inside.
All right, so I'm taking voice lessons and singing at home, and I can get involved in some virtual dance or concerts. But what about people who are feeling a little extra creative? It seems like the perfect time for someone to write their own shows, but I don't really know where to start. I know there's a couple of different type of musicals. Can I ask you about them?
Of course you can. And you said my favorite word, Gianna. Extra. You said my favorite word, extra.
Of course.
Love it.
So
okay.
I know one of the types of musicals is sung through, but I don't know how to really describe it.
Yeah, of course. So a sung through musical, for those of us who are sitting at home, those are kind of shows that don't have really any words that aren't sung. They kind of look like you might think an opera sounds like. They just start at the beginning, and then 3 hours later, after everyone's sung at you, you're done. We're looking at shows like Les Mis. Maybe some of us saw that movie. Maybe we liked it. Maybe we didn't. But we probably saw it. Or Phantom of the Opera. That's one that came out a while ago. It's also a stage production. Or the most recent one, which is a great example, is Cats. Who doesn't love Cats? I'm looking at you, James Vasquez. I'm looking at you. Cats. So that's sung through, beginning to end, all music.
Okay,
Yes.
So I know there's also types that are scene and separate songs.
Yeah, so back in like 1920s, 1930s, they were trying to figure out how to do this musical thing. They're like, oh, it's really cool if we can have a story and some song and dance. But usually they didn't really go together very well. They were like, here's a story that kind of makes sense, and then here's a song that doesn't in the middle of a scene or in the middle of a play. So we're looking at shows maybe like Anything Goes. They've done a lot of revivals. For those who don't know, a revival is when they take a musical that was written earlier and then they put it on Broadway again. That's what a revival is. So those are scenes, and then songs. Like composers they used to call it a trunk. They would have all these songs that they'd written or popular songs that they had written that were really famous at that time. And then they would just kind of stick them in, or interpolate is the word. They would stick them into these musicals and in these scenes to try and make it a musical because it was a really popular art form, but they didn't really know how to write it yet. So we have those scene songs, sort of things going on.
And what about rock musicals?
Rock musicals, yes. All right. So a rock musical is exactly like what it sounds. It's rock music that's intended to be dramatic. It kind of comes from this idea of a concept album. Do you know what a concept album is, Gianna?
I don't really.
So a concept album is basically a CD or an album that tells a story. It doesn't have like scenes or narration, but it has a story that's just done through song. Concept albums that you might know are like Jesus Christ Superstar. I think a lot of us saw Jesus Christ Superstar live. I think that was last year. That was really cool. We also saw the album American Idiot by Green Day.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love some Green Day? I love Green Day. I was living for that album when it came out. And then they adapted it and made it into a stage musical. And it's a rock musical based off of a concept album. So that actually is going to lead us into the next one that I was going to talk about, Gianna. You're so smart asking rock musicals led us into concept. We're talking about a concept musical. So
another concept word.
I know, another concept word. Gosh, musical theater people, stay away. Pick one word. So a concept musical is basically a musical that is based around an idea rather than like a normal narrative, right? So some of the more popular concept musicals, and it's hard to identify them unless like they call it a concept musical, but A Chorus Line, maybe a lot of us know that show. It's about actors, musical theater actors auditioning for a musical, and that the director wants to get to know them a little bit better. So he asks them all their individual stories. And so all the songs are different, all the stories are different, and they don't necessarily link together other than they're all under this concept of auditioning for the director. Another one that you might know is Company, which is about this single guy and all of his married friends. And so the concept is talking about being married versus being single and how you fit in that world, even though it's not a through narrative.
So
Yeah.
I think the last type, we haven't talked about it yet, but it's one of our favorites, jukebox musicals.
A jukebox musical. Gianna, do you even know what a jukebox is?
Yes, I do.
You do? Well,
Yes.
For those at home who don't know what a jukebox is, back in the old days, there was this machine that had all these records in it. And there was like a song list. And you could go look at the song list of popular songs, and you would take your quarter. Yes, music only costs a quarter. And you would put it in the jukebox and pick the song you wanted to play. And it was all popular music that you would hear like on the radio. So a jukebox musical is when you take a songwriter's canon or their collection of music and you put it into a story. Even though when they wrote those songs, they never wanted it to be in a story. They didn't think about it that way, right? So a jukebox musical is popular music by a songwriter put into a musical theater sort of frame. We're looking at our favorite, Mamma Mia, which is by ABBA. We're also looking at, maybe we're looking at Jagged Little Pill, which just opened on Broadway, which is music by Alanis Morissette, a little grungy and lots of feelings. We're also looking at Summer, the Donna Summer musical, or maybe Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett musical. These are all examples of jukebox musicals. So actually, Gianna, I have a really fun activity. You talked about keeping busy at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And creating during this weird time when you like want to stay busy and be an artist.
Right.
So I think you should write your own little scene into song jukebox musical.
Amazing.
How does that sound? Everybody at home, you can do this with us too. And if you want to type in your ideas into the chat, I would love to see what they are. So first
Remember to type in questions too. We'll get to those soon.
Oh yes, please type in your questions. I love answering questions. I'm a teacher, so I just love it. I love helping and answering. So everybody at home, pick one of your favorite pop songs that you think is like, could feel something, might have a little bit of a story. Everybody at home, think about it. Pick your pop song.
It doesn't have to be current, right?
No. In fact, if it's old, that's it. Because maybe we could get the rights to do it for real.
Perfect.
Okay, Gianna, do you have your song?
I think I do.
Yes.
It's a little nostalgic for my boy band craze.
Oh my gosh, it looks like Vietka is reliving her boy band stage life as well.
Oh my gosh.
Vietka says, I want it that way. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, Gianna, back to you. Sorry.
It's okay. My favorite boy band has always been Big Time Rush. So I'm thinking If I Ruled the World by Big Time Rush.
Okay. Yes, we're throwing it back a little bit. I like it. I like it. So Gianna, tell me a little bit, what's this song about?
Well, it's sort of just like the four of them singing about if they ruled the world, what would they do? And there's lines about throwing money in the air like confetti, and there are cops mentioned in there. It feels like it would be a nice little story.
Okay, there's money, cops, we're keeping it current. Okay. I hear you. So we have this song about people like wasting money and like living their best lives. What do you think who would sing this song? Like what kind of story, what narrative would be interesting around it?
I kind of see it as like these two boys, they're kind of poor, maybe orphans, and like they're dreaming about, if I ruled the world, I could do this, and like live, like trying to imagine having this power that they maybe don't have right now.
Okay, I love empowering people who are not empowered. That's like my jam. So sign me up for that musical. And we're also looking at these orphans who want to dream of a better life. I'm hearing like Newsies meets Oliver Twist vibes.
Yeah.
Meets boy band. Okay, I'm in. Sign me up. So in musical theater, when we sing, we want to find something that makes us have to sing. The song comes out of a moment where something happens that says to us, I have to sing, I can't just talk anymore. So what kind of incident, what could happen with that?
They're being made fun of. There's another boy, a local boy in the town, and he's got money, so he doesn't live the same lifestyle that they do, and maybe he was making fun of them.
Okay, so they're like, you don't get to make fun of me anymore. I don't like that. I'm gonna empower myself. I'm gonna take back what's mine, and like, if I rule the world, right? And then they sing the song. Okay, so what Gianna has just done, and what all of you have probably done at home, you've gathered either your siblings or your parents or whoever you're staying at home with, and you're like, okay, friends, I've written our libretto, because that's our new vocabulary. I've written our libretto for this musical. Here are your lines. Please have them memorized by 7. They memorized their lines. Gianna has put costumes. Yes, any favorite pop song. You can pick any pop song you want. That's the thing that's fun about it, is you can create a narrative out of any pop song. So Gianna has handed out costumes to her mom and dad so they can make their musical theater debuts in her living room. She's put costumes on her siblings. One of her brothers is the mean guy, who is the bourgeoisie from the kitchen. And he comes into the living room. He says, "I don't like you. You're poor." And Gianna and her family all sing this really big production number. That's when everybody in the ensemble of a musical comes together and sings this big number. So Gianna's tap dancing for her life. Her brother's doing a sensible jazz dance. Her mom is doing some ballet. And they finish with a nice musical theater button. That's what we call the end of a song, so the audience knows to clap. You guys, Gianna Merkhart has just written her first musical. And hopefully all of you at home have done it too. But don't record these and put them on the internet because we don't have the rights for any of this music.
Right.
But it's a great way to stay creative and practice musical theater writing while you're at home and quarantined with your family.
It seems like we have some questions coming in. It might be time to answer some of them, do a little Q&A.
I love a little Q&A.
All right. So we have some suggestions for songs that we can make into little jukebox musicals. Wrecking Ball.
Oh, yes. Wrecking Ball, the Miley Cyrus story.
Yeah. We have
I'm interested.
Shout by Tears for Fears.
Yes.
Ain't Too Proud.
Yeah.
What would be your song if you were writing a musical?
Oh, what would be my song? Okay. That's a very good question. Ironically, I mostly listen to musical theater. That's why I know so much about it. Let's see though. Let's answer some more questions and I'm gonna keep thinking about it. We'll come back to that.
Okay. It says, when building your musical theater audition repertoire, what genres do you think I should include? How do you find those songs?
Sure. Yeah. So usually I recommend like an upbeat or a comedy and a ballad. You want to kind of look at musical theater land and find one that works for a lot of shows. You don't want to get a new song for every show. So upbeat, up-tempo, a ballad, maybe a specific comedy song. And then you want to look at songs from different eras. They might be the same song if you can figure out how to change how you sing them. You want to look like a jazz standard. You want like a 40s song. You want 50s rock and roll. You maybe want a folk-esque song. You want some rock, like real 80s rock. And that could work for like grunge. And you want like a nice pop bop to go on to. And anything, anything that really shows you off well. That's like I think the go-to starter pack of musical theater audition
there's a
songs.
Great place to look. I think it's on Music Notes that they have audition cuts from different genres. So that's a good place to start too.
Yes, my friend Sherry Saunders actually worked with Music Notes to create that. It's Rock the Audition is her course, and she teaches that. Everybody in New York, she's like the go-to person. So I recommend going there and looking through all of that.
All right, we have another one. It says, I'd love to be in a musical for fun or dip my toe in for experience. Are there chances for people like me who aren't doing it for a living yet?
Absolutely. If you are a younger person, like between 6 and 18, we have tons of awesome youth companies around here. Center Stage Productions in Escondido, I work with them. I work with San Diego Junior Theater, which is normally just down the street from the Old Globe in Balboa Park. They have great programming. And all over, you can Google youth theater and find some great programming for young adults. Also, your community theater, if you type in community theater in my area, you're gonna come up with a whole bunch of places that offer opportunities for actors to audition and get experience, even if they haven't really like decided they want to do it for a living. Coronado Playhouse is a great place. OB Playhouse is a great place. These are really great organizations that kind of thrive on working with not necessarily professionals, people who have dedicated their lives to it and only do it for a living. Yeah.
All right, we have one here that says, how do I learn more about musical theater history and different shows without having to pay for a musical theater degree?
Oh, that's a great question. So there are a couple great books. If you like to read, there's a great book called Strike Up the Band, which is a musical theater history book. There's also a book called No Legs, No Jokes, No Chance, which was written about Oklahoma. And that's what one of the reviews said, because it didn't have girls in short dresses and it wasn't necessarily really funny. So they said no legs, no jokes, no chance. It's a great musical theater book. Ethan Morden is a musical theater historian. He's written several books about the history of musical theater. So he's great. Yeah, you can literally like type in musical theater history in Google and they'll come up.
Tons of results.
YouTube is a treasure trove. Like, I don't know how people survived without YouTube. If you want to look up musical theater history videos, Broadway the American Musical will probably pop up, which is a great documentary to learn about musical theater history. You might want to look at, I should have thought about this more. Actually, a great source for musical theater history, whoever is watching that Wikipedia page checks it. That's a great place to start your like initial research.
So a follow-up to this question, I can't afford to watch musicals all the time. Is there an alternative?
Is there an alternative to watching them live? YouTube, like I said, has a lot of clips. Sometimes you can find the whole show on there. They're pretty good at scrubbing and making sure that full musicals get taken down though. But there are a lot of clips. That's a great way to get connected to the rep. Your local library has a lot of filmed musicals. Definitely check that out. That's where I started watching most of my musicals. They used to film old musicals, and local library for this kid who loved his library. Like most kids are reading books about architecture. Not me. I was reading about musical theater and watching Oklahoma and Some Like It Hot. So
there's some good cabaret clips on YouTube too. They don't have to be full shows. Yeah.
Exactly.
You find an artist you like?
Is there anything else?
Oh, okay, yeah, we have some. A couple new songs for their ideas in their building their own jukebox. We have Chandelier by Sia.
Ooh.
And Words with Music by Lehman Engel.
Oh, Lehman Engel, Words with Music. Who is that from?
I don't know.
So Lehman Engel is a part of the writing, like BMI workshop, which is where musical theater people go to learn to write musical theater. So he's kind of a big deal.
It says that I was just told that suggestion was from Karen Ann Daniels.
Okay, Karen Ann. Yes. I would love to see that musical in your living room. I'll tune in next week for Karen Ann Daniels' Words and Music Lehman Engel musical.
Perfect. And then
yes.
this is the only one I have left. It says it's one for both of us. Can you each sing a couple of bars for us?
Oh, can we each sing a couple of bars? Okay. Yeah, she didn't warm up today, but I will do it. Okay.
Just real quick.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Gianna, or should I?
I could go first, sure.
Great, go for it, Gianna.
Okay, so I've had it stuck in my head recently. Big Fish. I miss it a lot. So, I'll maybe sing some of that. Do some time stops. That's my favorite one. So, that boy is staring and I feel a chill. I don't know why that boy is staring and the world is still. Couple bars there.
There you go. All right. I've been living my Rainbow Connection life lately, so I'm gonna sing a little bit of the Rainbow Connection.
Perfect.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? And that's all I'll give you today.
Beautiful. I love it. All right, we have
8.
one more question and then we're going to close it out.
Perfect.
Oh, maybe 2 more. Okay. What are we both working on right now?
What are we working on? Do you want to go first, Gianna?
Sure. Mostly college applications. That's taking up a lot of time, but almost done, so that's pretty good. I'm in a production of Be More Chill. It's sort of hectic trying to rehearse things safely, but we're hoping to get that on at some point next year.
Awesome. I'm so glad you asked, America or world, wherever you are. I am directing a Zoomsicle called Dear Edwina that is actually showing this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, 1, 3, and 7 o'clock with Center Stage Productions. You can buy tickets online at Center Stage at their website. It's from Escondido. It's really fun, and you can kind of see what the Zoomsicle world looks like. It's only $15, and the show's about 30 to 40 minutes. It's a lot of fun. So if you can, I'd love to see these mysterious people come see my show.
All right, and this last one, very relevant. It says, the history of musical theater is rooted in white supremacy. As a POC musical theater actor, how can I find more POC-centered musical theater history?
That is a very good question. There are a lot of resources and groups online that talk about BIPOC musical theater access. There's a great book that I have called Reframing the Musical, and it talks about how we can restructure and make these pieces of musical theater that are in fact rooted in white supremacy more accessible, and ways that we can approach musical theater education and in our classrooms. I am also a part of a lot of Facebook groups called, I would have to search it really quick, but it is about racial equality and restructuring the classroom in theater education. So those are great resources to start. And the best way to find answers is to ask. If you know your friend is like good at musical theater history, ask them if they could maybe lean you in the right direction. Google, research, because that is a question that we have to fix. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think I know who asked that one. Thank you for asking that one.
All right. So thank you, Randall, for this amazing conversation and all your wonderful knowledge. I wish we had more time today. I really wish we did. If anyone has more questions, I believe Randall's contact information is at the bottom of your screen. But if not, it is r.eames8@gmail.com. You can also connect with the Old Globe.
2 dots.
2 dots.
There are 2 dots. r.eames8@gmail.com.
Yes. And you can also connect with the Old Globe's Arts Engagement Department via Facebook or Instagram, or email them at aeinfo@theoldglobe.org. Thanks for tuning in for the season finale. Have a wonderful holiday season and be safe and well the rest of 2020.